Hello class, today our lesson is going to be about Genghis and Kublai Khan. Today's video may actually be two parts because I've got a lot to cover here, but I'm going to try to get it all in one video. Now our target is, I can describe the conquest of Genghis and Kublai Khan. Genghis and Kublai Khan were two rulers of a group of people from Mongolia called the Mongols. We can see that it is located right here in this map north of China. Now the geography of Mongolia is basically long flat plains called steppes. And we can also see that they had not really many cities. The Mongolian people were nomadic, and these tents right here are called yurts. Now, the Mongols in the past, and some of them even today, as you can see in these photos, they depended on their skills in horseback riding and archery. It was essential to their life. They were nomads, and they had to keep up with their herds. They also needed to make sure that they were skilled with archery so that they could hunt and protect themselves from raids from other tribes. Now, the Mongolian people were also very skilled at war. Mongol children learned these skills riding on horses, fighting with arrows and bows and arrows since they were young kids. So they naturally adopted those into battle. And as a result, the Mongol armies were very fast and extremely mobile. Now, Genghis Khan, who lived about 1162, we don't know exactly when he was born, but he did die in 1227. He is a chieftain of a Mongol tribe, and his birth name was Temujin. Now, he conquered and united all the Mongolian tribes underneath one rule. And the word name, Genghis Khan, means universal chieftain in Mongolian. And during his life, he basically began a period of conquest that would eventually end with the Mongols controlling the world's largest land empire ever. Now, when Genghis Khan was conquering and attacking different areas, his tactic, other than using horses and archers, was basically terrifying the people he would attack. The armies were ruthless in battle. He would send out messengers to cities requiring them to surrender, and those that did not surrender often had the entire population massacred. The destruction of Baghdad, Iraq, is very famous. Historians and eyewitnesses wrote that when the Mongol armies destroyed the famous libraries of Baghdad, they threw so many books into the Euphrates River that the river supposedly ran black with the color of the ink washed off from all the pages. Now, whenever he used these scare tactics, other cities who had not received these messengers yet would hear word about cities that did not surrender and often would just give up. And that's another reason why the armies conquered so much land so quickly, is because most of their enemies would just surrender so they wouldn't be killed. Now, by the time of Genghis Khan's death, he had conquered northern China, and you guys can see right here in this photo or this map that everything in green was the territory that Genghis Khan had conquered. Now, southern China, as you can see right here, was still underneath the control of the Song dynasty. It wasn't until Genghis's grandson Kublai Khan conquered the southern Chinese. Now, whenever he conquered southern China and he defeated the Song dynasty, he started the Yuan dynasty. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. And when he did so, he assumed the role of the emperor over China. Now, whenever he ended Chinese rule, that basically means that ethnic Chinese no longer controlled China. They were the first foreign people to conquer all of China. Now, when the Mongols conquered China, they were very unique from other places. One of those was that he promoted religious freedom. Kublai Khan allowed Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, Confucian scholars, followers of Taoism, all sorts of religion to work in the government. He adopted the beliefs of many different cultures, including Chinese culture. In fact, one of the reasons why Kublai Khan was able to defeat the Song dynasty is because they adapted some of the technologies like the use of gunpowder and better steel weapons. Now, the Mongolians and the Chinese did not mix socially. There are still some bad feelings between these two groups. Even though Kublai Khan allowed Chinese to work in his government, he did end the civil service exams. Scholar official class had pretty much declined and lost power, but the Mongolians still believed in merit. They believed that if you're going to work in the government, you should gain power based on your ability and your talent. Now, one of the biggest things about Kublai Khan is that he increased trade between Europe and Africa and Asia. Now, on this map right here, this shows us the four different empires controlled by Mongolians. The area in green was controlled by Kublai Khan and his direct descendants, and these other three colors were controlled by other Mongol rulers. But they were all four of them pretty much connected. Now, this circle right here shows us the Middle East, and this is where the main trade routes connecting Europe, Africa, and Asia connected. When Kublai Khan pretty much took control of the Silk Road, he lowered taxes, he provided more protection, other Mongol rulers did as well, for travelers and merchants. They wanted new ideas. They wanted uh, items and trading goods and money. And when they did that, the Europeans, for the first time, was able to see what was happening in the East. And a famous explorer named Marco Polo uh, traveled to China and returned to Europe writing a book about his journeys, which inspired the Renaissance period in European history. We'll get to that later on in the year. Now, eventually, the Yuan dynasty did collapse. After his Kublai Khan's death, the dynasty slowly lost power and influence. They lost territory, and later rulers were weakened by civil unrest and rebellion. Ethnic Chinese wanted to gain control over China once more, and eventually in 1368, a brand new dynasty in China, the Ming dynasty, took over, and the Mongolian people pretty much were pushed back north into their ancient homeland. Now, some final thoughts. If you include all the territory controlled by the Mongolians, they created the world's largest land empire. No other group has done so even to this day. The United States does not control nearly the amount of territory that the Mongolians did at the height of their power. No one has ever done that. Mongol-controlled lands practice religious freedom and meritocracy. They believe that it didn't matter what religion you followed, as long as you were peaceful and worked with the government. And even though they ended the civil service exams, they still thought that people should get their jobs and their power through their abilities and their talent. And the control of the Silk Road increased trade between Europe and China, and that has an enormous impact on European culture in the 1300s with Marco Polo and the Renaissance. All right, and that's the end of this lesson. Our target was that I can describe the conquests of Genghis and Kublai Khan. Stay tuned for your assignment to prove to me that you guys can do those things.